Hey everybody, we're back again with another comic book review, and this time it's the first limited uh series for Remy LeBeau, aka Gambit. Uh yeah, I actually it's deep in my closet. I actually got the first issue of this as one of the first X-Men comics that my uncle gave to me when I was a little kid. And I really love the art in this. It's like one of my favorite arts. Of course, Chris Claremont and Jim Lee, I'm pretty sure it was Jim Lee also, that created Gambit back in the day. And he's always been a mysterious character, but this time they actually got his first, limited series. Also, I just covered my review on season 2 of the 90s X-Men cartoon show, and one of the episodes uh has some elements of the story in it. I'm pretty sure this came first before the episode aired, but leave it before we get into it. Please follow me on links in the description below. Check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check out my Patreon, patreon.com/talkativecarl, my Twitch and my Twitter, so you know when I'm live. Oh my god, Gambit is an awesome character, beloved by all. If it wasn't for like Wolverine, Gambit would probably be like the biggest deal in terms of the X-Men. But before we get into it, let's go over Remy LeBeau's power set. Of course, yes, he has the ability to, well, the technical name would be molecular acceleration. Remy has the power to take the potential energy stored in an object and convert it into kinetic energy, thus charging that item with explosive results. He prefers to charge smaller objects, such as the ever-present playing cards, as the time required to charge them is greatly reduced and they are much easier for him to throw. The only real limitation to this ability is that the time required to charge the object. The larger it is, the more time it takes, but the bigger the explosive results. The charging requires direct skin contact. The playing card, charging that, yields the same force as a grenade. So you can imagine how big an explosive object would be if it's like in this particular panel in this comic that I'm going to review. He charges up like a human-sized statue, and it goes off like 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 C4 or something. But his charging capabilities does not work on organic living matter. He also can use this ability to enhance his physical capabilities. Gambit can use to accelerate his healing a bit. His speed, his agility. He also has something called a disillusion. Cause objects to pull themselves apart instead of exploding violently, making them harmlessly melt down to nothing. Once having focus charging on dissolving shrapnel in a victim's stomach, and at times when jump started, able to overcharge falling debris from crumbling buildings. His control over this has increased to the point he can shatter ice he was encased in without blowing up. Disruption. Gambit can take his explosive acceleration to temporarily scramble the sensory awareness of a person, knocking them out cold. Static interference creates natural static because of the charged potential energy always in his body that shields his mind from intrusions by telepaths. It doesn't totally prevent invasion, but it does like make it harder for a telepath to like get in his head. Vibration emission, Gambit, through kinetic acceleration instead of conversion, can emit a shock wave accompanying a bright flashbang, which leaves a sizable crater in the ground. Remote charging, at the height of his power, Gambit could activate the potential kinetic conversion process of matter from a distance with nothing but direct eye contact. Shearing, cutting, and you can still charge like a card and be able to like pick locks that way by just cutting through dense solid steel that way. Acceleration bestowal. Gambit can take the energy locked within a charged slug and use it in order to continue pushing it towards and onward in a given direction with enough concentration, even though a solid energy field while without withholding its explosive reaction. Delayed charging. With some effort, Gambit can prolong the detonation time of his activated discharge, causing a slight lag when he's preparing his potential kinetic conversion of matter into a volatile state. Hypnotic charm, subliminal psionic talent channeled through his voice that allows a subtle influence over any sentient mind. This power allows Gambit to compel others to believe what he says and agree with anything he suggests. More powerful minds have proven immune to Gambit's charms, and people who are consciously aware of what he's doing can shake off the effects. He is fluent in English and Cajun French, master marksman, master martial artist in French kickboxing and bojutsu, and expert stick fighter, because he always has a staff. Expert thief, obviously. And he actually is a, gifted intellect as a strategist, almost on par on, somebody like Wolverine and Beast, but people tend to underestimate him a bit. So now you got a good understanding of Gambit's power set. It's more than just charging of cards and blowing things up. He actually got a little bit of in-depth, of a power set. Anyway, we're on the streets of New Orleans as this mysterious cloaked figure, or like trench-coated figure, wandered through the streets of New Orleans, and you hear this tale of this tithe collector that he's treated like this boogeyman. Like, beware the tithe collector. It's assassins and thieves alike fear this tithe collector. And if you remember my review on season 2 of X-Men 90s TV show, I briefly touched on about the whole tithe thing. But basically, Remy LeBeau comes from this thieves guild, and they have like a long-standing feud over generations against this assassins guild, and they constantly been butting heads ever since. And of course, they gain, well, at least in the comics, if the tithe is honored, then depending on the giver who's taking in this tithe, which in this case is an external, a mutant who has the ability of long life, can bestow, well, at least in the Thieves Guild's case, once they honor their tithes, they are granted long life. Or if they don't get anything this year. Or I'm not sure if it's annually or every few months or every few years. Pretty sure it's every few years. But the assassins, if they honor their tithe, they will gain power, like like energy projections or augmented strength and speed or something like that. A very generic use of the term power. But there's also this mysterious cloaked figure who is killing people from the Thieves Guild. So we're in Westchester in the danger room where Rogue and Gambit are training while Wolverine and Storm is observing through the command center. Now, I want to speak on this really quick. I'm pretty sure it's Lee Weeks' art that's involved, because he's the artist in here. That maybe it's him that's known for this, but here it's just like the women in this comic, their hair is always not just ever the flowing, but just big and just way out there, and it seems like this got like movement on its own, which I kind of like. I can't really explain why. I just like long hair, but I just like that big poofy flowy hair that every female seems to have here. And like I love like the stubble look on a lot of the guys' faces that we see, like Wolverine and Gambit, for example. And Remy, like going through like the training, and it's like he's treating it like a game all the while he's flirting with Rogue the whole time. Of course, currently Rogue and Gambit are married in the comics, but it was a long time before it's that whole will they won't they thingamajig. But these two, like obviously have like a clear thing for each other, but because of Rogue's powers, they can't really like be physical with each other, even though they're just that much in love with each other. And of course Gambit has always been a player, but it's like his heart belonged to anybody. Well, there's only two women that his heart truly belonged to, but Rogue just kind of beat out Belladonna, the leader of the Assassins Guild. And sorry. All the while, this trend going on, and Rogue's telling Gambit to get serious while he's sitting there flirting. There's this mysterious man hopping through the fences of the mansion, very stealthily bypassing every tripwire and all these things that would normally go off tonight. Which, by the way, I want to bring up, speaking of night, this comic, all 4 issues, every time we are in a particular scene, it's always at night. You never are seeing any of these characters during the daytime during this adventure. For some reason, I kind of like it. I mean, it kind of enhance the ambiance on what's going on, especially when you're dealing with like the tithe collector who's coming through a mysterious fog and everything like that. As a kid, until like I read the entire thing for this review, as a kid, and I saw that first issue, the tithe collector seems like one of those kind of like boogeymans that seems super all powerful that you neither thief nor assassin dare not mess with. And he seems, we'll cover it later, he's powerful in his right, but he seems like, wow, he gets pretty much, you just get like enough of people, like at least a handful of people, you can jump them pretty easily if they got decent enough power. I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting Thanos level power, but it's like, wow, you come across as like super creepy, like you can easily handle somebody. But As this mysterious guy is hopping through these defenses to get inside the X-Mansion, Gambit's the only one that kind of picks up on this, even though Wolverine, for some reason, didn't pick up on it first. And they bring it up about like why is none of these psychics didn't pick it up. It's like, you know, Gambit points out like, oh, we got, you know, us thieves gotta keep certain secrets to ourselves. I call, you know, BS. But turns out Gambit knows this guy, a brother from the Thieves Guild named Henri, and Henri explains to Remy that he has to come back to New Orleans because of it's tithing time, and something's going on right now. There's something mysterious going on. Something's off here. Because he's given word to Remy that Belladonna's brother is back, and Remy told him like, that's impossible. I killed him in a duel, literally on the wedding, on him and Belladonna's wedding, because it's like, you know, him and Belladonna's kind of like Romeo and Juliet, where in order to ensure like true peace between these guilds instead of killing each other constantly over time, the union between Gambit and Belladonna kind of nipped all that in the bud. But of course, the brother, who has this kind of honestly a weird fixation with his sister, like nobody's dared to touch his sister kind of thing, like, and especially no thief or thief, you know, given the Cajun accent. Right as Henri is explaining, an arrow, you know, comes out of nowhere, pierces his heart, and it's like, wow, he was just bleeding all over the place. Like, God, how much blood was he carrying in that small body of his? And it's just like all over the place. He just got shot in the air with an arrow one time in the chest. If he was riddled with arrows, maybe, but Wolverine immediately picks up the scent and tells exactly where Remy needs to go. So Remy went on his own, despite, you know, Rogue's protest. Wolverine, you know, says like, settle down. This is something that he has to do on his own. And of course, Wolverine, of all people, understands that, you know, there's certain things in a person's past that they gotta handle things on their own. They typically need, like, you know, it's like if he has to handle Sabretooth, that's like a Wolverine task that he needs to handle himself. That's a Wolverine problem. Unless things escalate, he won't call the X-Men for it. So this is like a Gambit problem. And especially since a death of a family member, well, Remy is actually adopted. This is kind of like, you know, adopted brothers and sisters of the Thieves Guild. Because when Remy was a kid on the streets of New Orleans, he became a skilled pickpocket, and he ended up pickpocketing the leader of the Thieves Guild, who adopted him and gave him the name, his last name of LeBeau, and became Remy LeBeau ever since. So he's tight with his brothers in arms of the Thieves Guild, and since, you know, one of these assassins took the life, there's an eye for an eye. So he goes after these thieves, goes to his warehouse. I love this, you know, bottom page of this design of this picture of LeBeau. It's just like this sunken black eyes and his hair just all over the place. It's just sticking right up. I don't know why. As a kid, I always thought that was the coolest looking depiction of Gambit. Just ever so slight of a thing. And of course, you get to see him utilize, it's not necessarily need to be playing cards. It can be something small as a toothpick in order to break into a locked surface. Of course, he's skilled enough to break into a place without the needing of his powers, but time is of the essence kind of situation. But he still did it with enough finesse to get inside. matter of fact, this whole Thieves Guild and Assassin's Guild kind of reminds me of the situation in like the Assassin's Creed games with the Assassins versus Templars. Except the Templars aren't thieves. Well, they steal in all these kind of like, you know, pieces of Eden kind of situation. So in a way, you can quantify them as thieves if you want to, but not in a traditional sense. Uh, so in an attempt to try to ambush uh LeBeau, he expertly handled these dudes with his, you know, skills with a bow staff and of course his charging cards, and he's like easily handled these few assassins until the shadowy figure that we saw earlier in the issue starts doing a slow clap cliche of a villain thing, and he's revealed to be Belladonna's brother, and it's like he wants his revenge against LeBeau and trying to also keep him away from his sister, who somehow is still kind of alive, who supposed to be dead but resurrected somehow, but not all the way, you know. So she's essentially in some kind of comatose state, and uh he challenges Remy again, but loses again to a sword fight. Even though Remy doesn't want to do this, he, you know, doesn't want to kill him twice. He's already bad enough, feel bad enough to kill him once. He doesn't want to do it a second time, but he ends up doing it again. Or it seems like this guy almost impels himself, but he then slinks away via portal like a coward. Then Remy heads back to the X match and decides, like, I gotta go back to New Orleans, find out what's going on. How is Belladonna's brother back? I know he's got a name, but I'm blanking on it. And Rogue decides to tag along despite Remy's protest. So he heads back to New Orleans, and I mean, maybe he's texting the X Jet or something, or at least a mini version of it to travel fairly quickly, because Remy goes to certain places fairly fast. So he heads to New Orleans. He breaks into the mansion of the assassins, where he sees the sleeping form of Belladonna, and he kind of stupidly just screams Belladonna super dramatically, Belladonna! And then of course alerts everybody in this freaking house, including the patriarch, the father of Belladonna and a brother. And he, you know, immediately starts, him and his guards immediately starts fighting Remy LeBeau, and of course Gambit handle his own, but in comes Rogue. You know, it's like, of course, Rogue's a powerhouse in her own right, even without the whole power life absorption main ability. She can just tussle with these goons and just toss them two out the window. It ain't nothing to her. And then once it's down to the father and the two X-Men, he explains to Gambit that, you know, they need the elixir, this elixir that the external provides the thieves with long life. But the problem is it only comes in like 3 parts to make it complete. And since Gambit's father has I think Luc LeBeau, I think, or Jean-Luc, or just Luc LeBeau, has 1 part. The tax collector has another part, and then the external behind all this has the 3rd part. And of course, you know, Belladonna's brother is seeking these elixir to help him and his sister. Of course, when Remy takes Belladonna's body and leaves with Rogue, uh, the brother, sneaks in right after they leave and starts killing all the assassins except for the father, who of which doesn't consider that to be his son anymore. His son died, and whoever's here now ain't him, and so he's kind of disowned him at this point. So he heads back to the Thieves Guild, and you know, asks like, I need that elixir you have. Even though it's like, the people are, the thieves are protesting, like, why would we need to? Because the bitter rivalry between like the thieves and assassins run pretty deep for a lot of the members. Both parties lost a lot of people on both sides, which explains why it's so important for that marriage between Gambit and Rogue to work out. Gambit and Belladonna to work out to put an end to this constant slaughter on both sides. We lost too many, but they refused to give up their elixir to help an assassin. Um, I'm trying to remember here. 1 second here. Julian, that's the Belladonna's brother's name, Julian. Of course, they was about to get like their own election until Gambit interrupted their part of the tithing ceremony with the tithe collector. It was like, come back when you're you got your act together, thieves. So they didn't get the elixir, but Remy decides, okay, we gotta go to the one who has it, which is the tithe collector. But the tithe collector ends up getting jumped by Julian and his crew of flunkies, including one who actually is the assassin. The one that Remy in his panel is thrown against the wall is actually secretly working for Julian, because like I said, Julian needs that elixir as well. And it's like, even he, despite his hatred towards Remy LeBeau, is tired of this whole back and forth with this feud and dealing with his tie things, and they just want it all. Or at least he wants it all. So they take Belladonna's body to a home that Remy a long time ago purchased. He was planning on using that as like a retirement spot where he just lived the rest of his life in this beautiful home, because he saved up a lot of money that he pretty much stole to buy this house, where I think at the initial time he wanted to live a life with belladonna, and that was the initial goal. Of course, he has this like this black woman caretaker looking after the place, but since now he has to go find this elixir, this external has, which he finds out she's way in Paris. That's where he travels off to, while Julian stole one of the elixirs from the tithe collector. And of course, Rogue, while she's babysitting and protecting Belladonna while she's comatose, she's get like a bit in her feelings a bit, because since she couldn't really express physically her love with Remy LeBeau and and have like a normal kind of relationship with him, she contemplate on touching Belladonna's skin and absorbing her memories and experiences with Gambit, but she kind of decides against it at the last minute. While in France, it gets almost like James Bondy ish here. He's just like sneaking into this kind of like Casino Royale type of fancy place, and he started asking questions about what was his external's name? He called him their external, but um Condra, the external. He started asking questions about Condra, but some goons start showing up and like, come with us, please. And of course, they're about to, they took him down to this parking lot, about to execute him right then and there on the spot. It's like, mon ami, mind if I have a smoke? It's like, gives him this golden lighter, and he charges it up and throws it to the ground, causing distraction, and easily takes down all these goons. So he takes the elevator up to Condra's suite, and of course, him and Condra have like a pass, because she immediately sees him and goes over and just makes out with him. And of course, there's like a little moment where you actually see like a moment where like the tithe collector actually has some power, but he doesn't really. Man, it's like, if I can tell my young-year-old self to like, yeah, don't get too worried about this tithe guy, because apparently he's really he's not all that cracked up to be, because like he shows he got some kind of power, but he doesn't really express the power and why he should be like some kind of threat. I'm kind of disappointed. And he's trying to get the vial that she has. Of course, she slips in her bra and pulls out the closet. Remy's followed it at some point along the way. She took, because, well, the tithe collector has the ability to teleport, and of course he at some point got Mr. LeBeau and tied him up and hold him as like collateral. And she then breaks it down to Remy that, I will give you this vial if you do something for me. There's another woman that, scorned by Remy LeBeau. Uh, she explains to Remy that since you lived a very long time, at one point in the in history, because she was just bored, Chandra decided to manipulate the past thieves and assassins guild into hating each other, manipulating the scenes behind the scenes, and show herself as some kind of goddess that deserves ties to appease her, and cause these people to come after each other in order to gain favor over the other. And this ticked Remy off. I was like, what the hell? It's like all that we know was all a complete fabrication. Everything that we know about our past, you manipulated the whole entire thing. Lots of people on both sides died because you were just bored. We didn't have to be enemies at all. And this kind of moment kind of reminds me, if you ever watched Naruto and Naruto Shippuden, there's this shadowy little imp thing that is like the right hand of this overall big alien bad guy, a bad woman type of character called Kaguya. And this imp thing, because Kaguya was defeated by her sons, and she was kind of the harbinger of ninjutsu for the ninja world in the first place, this imp thing slither out and plan out a long con, essentially, in order to try to get his master resurrected again, and essentially cause this, all the ninja wars, this animosity between villages, and and just guiding situations in a particular way, cause a few wars and grudges, and and just everything that we know in Naruto anime to be. He manipulated all that to the point of where we are, at the end of it all. And it's kind of like that, where it's this woman from the very beginning manipulated everything to what Remy to know as to current point in time, and it's very insidious. She is not a good person, obviously. But she wants to broker a deal with Remy. Um, uh, uh, she's like, kill your father, and you can have everything you want, including the vials of the elixir to do as you wish. And of course, Remy ain't having that. But here comes Deus Ex Machina of a villain, Julian, come bursting in, and he wants all the vials. It's like, okay, I can probably explain away that Remy probably has some kind of mini X-Jet to get him to the US to Paris. I can probably get away with something like that, to be that quick to go from one place to the other. X-Jet is pretty fast. But how is it that Julian, oh well, he has teleportation, I'm just remembering about it. Well, I was like, because once I had a moment to actually think about it, I was like, okay, yeah, okay, now I know. But it's just wow, you guys get to certain places very quickly, than normal. But Julian wants those vials, and a fight ensues. These two, Remy and Julian's about to square off until Chandra just knocks Julian right out the building in a display of power. And Brem was like, why? You could have just had us just duke it out right here and now, and if you, because you was so bored and everything like that. And she was like, "No, my nice person rug. Just go, Remy, before I change my mind." And of course, he now doesn't leave without just give this big fantastical kiss that kind of sweeps her off her feet. You know, gets her hot and bothered because Remy's just that dude. And then he leaves with his father. Then she noticed, you know, the vial in her brassiere. You know, it's the 90s. You know, there's a lot of characters dressed like strippers. You know, a lot of times in the comics, because mostly boys was reading comics. Not saying like girls wasn't reading comics too, but just more often than not, you know, artists and writers at the time knew boys was primarily reading this comic, so you got to get some scantily clad women in here. So then she knows that her, you know, the vial is missing out of her bra, and it's like, that son of a, and it decides to send a tithe to go, you know, go after Remy. So at this point, now it's almost like very John Wick. It's like, why's my thing cut off? Uh, it's very John Wick. Like, oh, you're excommunicado at this point. Well, the tithe collector is getting both thieves and assassins guild together and lying, pretty much saying like, oh, like if Raymond LeBeau betrayed us all, you know, he has the vials, we need to get him, he's betrayed us all, he needs to be to appease Condra, you gotta kill Remy LeBeau. So Remy goes inside this church. He you know, starts fighting off Julian. But it's pretty, you know, it's done pretty easier than it was in the past confrontations, because apparently he was given like a little bit of the elixir, but the problem was, like I said earlier, these elixirs have to be, there's three in parts for a reason. They have to be mixed in a particular fashion in order to be whole and to work appropriately to bestow long life. And because it was not complete, he kind of looks like, you know, he's slowly dying. He only got like enough of a long life, but it's slowly starting to kill him now. So that's why he's so desperate to get the elixir and to save him and his sister. But he doesn't trust that with that task with, you know, Gambit. And Gambit is pretty much disgusting. He goes to talk to his father. It's like, okay, explain yourself. Why would you keep this kind of stuff from us? It's like, you knew this was going to happen, and it's like, you know, it's like sins of the father situation. It's like he kept things for the good, for the group kind of situation. Because the father seems the kind of miscalculation with the elixirs before, and knowing that, you know, he's seen on rare occasions something like what's happening with Julian happen to others, but he doesn't want to he doesn't want the other members of the Thieves Guild to cause, like, you know, them to be weary of the tithe and the gift that's bestowed, because who doesn't want to have a long life? That's just something that they, you know, cherished a lot. And if they knew that, you know, there's a rare occasion that so it not working for a select few, then they probably won't go along with it, or some might be down with it and it cause probably some infighting. Who knows? He just rather not have that. But then the tie collector shows up with both thieves and Assassin's Guild. That's when like Remy grabs the statue, start charging it up, and of course it's taking a long while, and the father's trying to stall, and he pushes the statue out the window, and it explodes in like a massive explosion, and it's disorienting everybody, and it gets very John Wick at this point, because it's like now Remy is like handling everybody. He's like flipping over everybody, using his bow staff skills, and he just like taking out everybody, thieves and guilds alike, and just like throwing out his playing cards. And this is probably the first time in a long time I can think of in a comic book with Gambit that he actually ran out of cards. And because like every other iteration, he always just had like a bundle of cards, which by the way I never even brought up in my review on the first season 1 of X-Men 90s show, where you first see Remy LeBeau go into a store and actually buy a whole bunch of deck of playing cards. So I'm pretty sure most of his funds go towards playing cards, because he can charge up any small object or any object he wants to, but his go-to choice and easy throwing material is the playing cards. Then he runs to find after he snatches the elixir that he needs, he goes to Belladonna and try to make sure he gives, because he's going to take the risk, because he wants to get her out of that comatose state, because he's going to eventually start slowly dying. And but he shows up with just like Sam Raimi's Green Goblin. Tax Collector got Rogue and Belladonna in his arms, and he's presenting him with a unwinnable choice kind of situation. And Remy, feigning like he's like groveling at the feet of the Tax Collector, but actually he's need to grab his coat, charge it up, and because it's going to explode, he's trying to take it off, but Remy kicks him out the window, and then he just explodes. And it's like a awesome display, because like you do not want Remy to touch anything on you, because it is like, because it probably gives off maybe like, it's like a grenade, like you got 3 to 5 seconds, but you don't want to play with that 3 to 5 seconds at all. But then as he's trying to mix the vials, because after at one point when Rogue was contemplating on touching Belladonna to gain her memories, Belladonna's kind of like comatose convulsion or something like that causes her to touch Rogue unknowingly, and Rogue ends up absorbing parts of her memories with Gambit, and she's trying to explain to Gambit she loves him, and like trying to explain what happened while he was gone, and Gambit is just like, okay, he needs a focus, and he's like, not meaning to, but he snapped in at Rogue, like, Rogue, can look, I don't have time, Chef. I need to get this just right. And then right as he's mixing everything, he got the vial, he gets stabbed through the hand by a blade from Julian, and like, you idiot, this could have saved your sister, what's wrong with you? And it's like, well, nobody saves my sister but me. And as he's prepared to like attack Remy, the Assassin's Guild, the father of the Assassin's Guild shows up and shoots tons of crossbow arrows into Julian, immediately killing him at that point. finishing him off. And when like all scenes for not, Remy notices like some of the elixir got seeped into the bed sheets, and he's like, okay, like we still got some. We're gonna take a crack at this. This might not be the appropriate amount, but let's hope for all hope. So he takes the bed sheet that has like the goo in there. He squeezes over, Belladonna's mouth, and huzzah! She wakes up. It's a miracle, but because it's still technically not the appropriate amount, there is still a drawback. She does not remember Gambit at all. It's like, I'm so happy to see you, Chef. It's like, who are you? Oh, I'm a friend, just a really good friend. This is your father. He'll take care of you. And the father takes Belladonna away, but it is bittersweet because of what Remy did. He is no longer allowed to come back to New Orleans, and by extension the Thieves Guild, because he upended a lot of stuff. And of course the Conjure, the external, is probably gonna be a little teeth as well, peeved as well. So it ruins a lot. But Remy's like, oh, at least I have Rogue. But Rogue, because she has a moment where she calls him Cher, but this is like because of the absorption of Belladonna and her Cajun kind of background seeping through, she's like, no, I can't. And she runs away, leave out. Yeah. But then everything ends with, Gambit, doesn't have anybody. He still has the X-Men. He goes back. But I kind of like this because the 4-issue series begins with the tithe collector, with the, boogeyman story about the tithe collector. Now there's a boogeyman story in a way of Gambit, where, look out for the how it's presented. Let me get this right. Out of the ashes of the old and the new legend is born on the streets of New Orleans. A legend used by Creole mothers to frighten bad little children. The dark, handsome thief sneaking through the shadows of the night. The thief who tosses lightning from his hands and steals the heart of your girl. The thief searching for the love he can never have. The thief, the traitor to all. So goes the legend of Gambit. I kind of like that, even though it's like, how he's some kind of legendary boogeyman if he's palling around with the X-Men, full on display for the world to see, but whatever. But at this point in time, he is content with what's going on and not letting it get to him, even though it is getting to him. But I freaking love this, though. Like, I love the art, love dialogue. The art especially really enhances everything. Like I said before, I love it when everything's playing out at night. I do not want to see a shred of day. This is kind of thing like Batman. I do not want to see a shred of daylight in this kind of story, because it's like a very moody atmosphere. And I love the whole thing about the whole Assassin's Thieves Guild. Their ancestors was manipulated by this ancient mutant behind the scenes just because she was bored, and lots of lives were destroyed because of her. That was just like, wow, that was like really messed up. So yeah, that's Gambit, man. Highly recommend this. It's like, Gambit is like a straight up beast. Of course, there's also a story where he was put on trial for the situation he caused with the Morlocks before he joined up with the X-Men, that he'd been keeping like a personal secret, because lots of his past was shrouded in secret. And he was on the outs with the X-Men for a while because of them finding out he had a hand in the Morlocks' subjugation by the hands of Mr. Sinister, from what I recall. But this is a very dope comic. Highly recommend Gambit, the first limited series. You will gain something out of this. It's very fun. Art is fantastic. The dialogue's fantastic, and just Gambit just doing his thing. Stark contrast to my Hank McCoy Beast limited series review that I just did a few minutes ago, because that was not anything. Like, each member of the X-Men should have their own kind of story. Can you believe Professor Xavier doesn't have his own story, his own solo series at any point after so many years since the X-Men's creation? It's weird to me, especially during the 90s. There should be like a plethora of solo X-Men members, solo stories to really highlight them individually. And I find it odd that over the years they haven't been that much between the two. We should be one with Forge. I'm pretty sure there's one with Sunfire. There's plenty of X-Men members over the years. Like Banshee, there should be one with Banshee. But anyway, because like I did an Archangel story, but it was like a one-off thing. It was not technically a limited series. Find that very weird, even though he was also a founding member of the X-Men. But anyway, I want to jump into like a brief little story arc from DC really quick in well, at least not really quick right now. I mean, like this coming Thursday, I want to cover that one with you guys, because I initially wanted to wait until later in the year, but I'm just got like an urge to really want to talk about it, because it's like, introduces like a coolest villain character I've ever seen in DC. One of the coolest, but we'll get into that. At the same time, this Thursday I will cover X-Men: The Last Stand as well. So look forward to those this week. Later on tonight, we'll be hopping back into Jedi Survivor. So look forward to that. If you follow me on Twitch and Twitter. And that is Gambit. What's the next? Matter of fact, what's the next X-Men people that I will be talking about? We'll go with Rogue and Storm is gonna be next. Rogue and Storm. I think after that I'll go with Bishop and Cable, the time travel Terminators. Rogue and Storm will be the next X-Men comics that I'll be taking care of. Anyhoozle, let me know what you think of Gambit. Like I said, what was your favorite Gambit stories personally? And I will see you guys later. Take care.